not as especially abled, but our heroes, the heroes with a lot of special abilities in the country and outside the country. So, thank you so much, Madhura. Thank you very much. So, guys, my name is Amit Kaushal. I'm an engineer and a lawyer, and we run a law firm called Photon Legal. We specialize in dealing with protecting IP for our clients. We help them protect their ideas through patents and trademarks, and help them leverage their IP. I'm also the newly elected president of the ILA National Chapter. ILA has about 70 chapters in India and about 7,000 plus members in India. ILA has a beautiful vision. The vision of ILA is to clean the legal system of the country, clean it, because it's in a mess. And we know it's a gigantic task to clean the legal system of the country. Because it's a gigantic task, that's why we've taken it up. There's no point doing small things in life. There are people suffering due to pendency of cases. Cases are pending from years. There are lawyers who are just working in the courts just to make a fool of their clients. There are a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of corruption in a lot of areas in the country, in the legal system. And ILA wishes to clean all of that. And it's a massive task, and we'll need help from all of you fantastic people. Now, because this task, we have chosen this small objective of helping our folks, our heroes, disabled people, or especially able people. What laws do we have for them in India? What laws do they have in the US? What entitlement do they have in India? What entitlement do they have in the US? So we have got a beautiful panel to discuss the subject of disability laws in our country. And I would like to, first of all, thank all of you fabulous speakers to come over this morning. And I would like Dr. Sanjay, if you can introduce yourself, and we'll do a round robin introductions, and then we'll start asking the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Sanjay Jain. I was earlier principal ILS Law College, and presently I think I'm the first visually challenged professor to have been appointed in prestigious National Law School, India University. Although professionally my cup of tea is comparative constitutional law, sociological jurisprudence, and feminism, I take deep interest presently in disability rights, jurisprudence, and my aim right now is to ensure that Constitution of India should make a real difference in lives of persons with disabilities. If it is a transformative document, then the transformation has to happen even in the lives of persons with disabilities. That's what I maintain. So you may say that I'm a mixed bag with a very peculiar combination of trained expert in constitutional law and activist in disability rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Thank you very much. Dr. Sanjay itself, he himself is a very super example of representing ILA, the National Law School, Bangalore. He's a professor there. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for your time. Over to Pranav. Pranav, if you can introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon to everybody in India, as well as good evening to the people in the US. I'm Pranav Desai from Los Angeles. I'm also police survivor since age of 4 and working as a business unit head for entity data for North America here for 15 years. Important thing is that despite of having polio with both the legs, I have been able to do what I want to do in America because of the legal framework, etc. So inspired by that, I started Voice of Specially Able People. As you can see, specially able people trying to change the narrative, or non-profit from US. And we have now done various things in India, but at a high level, I'm working closely with the Prime Minister of India's office, also as an honorary advisor to Government of India, Social Justice Department, and several opportunities to work on, as I call it, transforming India for people with disability in multiple ways, including I had opportunity to participate in bringing this new law, RPWD 2016. Great to have with Amit.
Pranav, thank you so much. I think you talking about from the first-hand experience and helping your country from LA is a superb thing that you can do for the country. And I'm sure since you're experiencing the law yourself, I'm sure you will be able to contribute fantastic, fabulously in this panel. Really appreciate you coming over and talking to us.
Thank you. Amit, one suggestion: can we have a subtitles, closed caption stream also? That should be
Yes,
easy. Yeah, that would be good.
Madhura, can you do that, please?
I'm sorry,
If
how
you
do
can,
we do it?
if you can start the subtitles, there should be an option.
In Zoom, there is an option. If it is a Zoom, right? Zoom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Zoom.
Zoom.
So there is a option there.
Mm,
Yeah, you need to go to the settings and there is an option to enable captioning. I mean, since this is on, we're talking about disability, I think this option needs to be there for sure.
Very true.
mhm.
Okay, so I've enabled it in the back end. Let's see if it comes up here. Yeah, we have enabled it, automated captions as well as manual ones.
Okay, I think we can.
All right. Are the captions enabled? I don't think so. Mother, if you can figure this out while we continue the introduction. Over to you, Anaya.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ananya Bali, and I am entering my 5th year of law school at OB Jindal Global University. So, of course, there's a very distinguished panel of speakers I'm very grateful to be sharing today's Zoom session with. And I don't know if I'm qualified enough to be here in the first place, but I think I'm genuinely grateful that I've been given the opportunity. But when it comes to the rights of the disabled, when it comes to what all can be done to make the way forward even smoother and even better, that is a cause that has always resonated me. In fact, it resonated with me. In fact, at my own level, at the college, I have been a peer tutor with the APOYO, that is the Disability and Inclusion Society in my college. I've been a researcher with them for the past 2 years. So whatever I could do at my own level, I've always tried my hand at that, or whether it's writing papers or whether it's studying subjects like sociology and taking electives in the same sense in college in your 3rd and 4th year. That is one sphere I've always somehow felt gravitated towards. And I'll leave a little later for the remaining talk that we'll be going forward with. But once again, just really happy to be here. Thank you.
Ananya, thank you very much. Thank you so much. You definitely deserve to be on this panel more than anybody else because you're very passionate about the subject. We had a speaker catch-up call a couple of days back. Ananya is definitely very passionate about this topic and subject. Thank you so much for sharing the stage with us. Akshay, over to you.
Thank you, Amit. Good morning, everyone, and to all the distinguished speakers as well. I am Akshay Jain, and I am associated with the National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People, NCPDP. NCPDP is a 26-year-old cross-disability research and advocacy-based organization. And I am into the disability sector for about 5 years now, and my journey started during my undergraduation while I was doing my studying law in Hyderabad. So closely associated, have done some work at the grassroots, and now I'm working at policy and advocacy at NCPD.
All right. If you guys can also mention your title or designation besides your name, like the way Pranav has done, Akshay has done, Ananya, you can mention 5th year law student or anything else you want to say, mascot of the disability or whatever you want to call yourself. My first question goes to Dr. Sanjay. Dr. Sanjay, thank you so much for coming on the panel. So Dr. Sanjay, you have been talking and you have been advocating a lot on reasonable accommodation for disableds. Can you explain what reasonable accommodation is and how disabled people can benefit what rights they have in our country?
Well, reasonable accommodation is not, first of all, disability specific, though often it is identified with disabled people. Everybody needs accommodation, and everybody is dependent. This idea that all of us are autonomous is welcome. Nobody can survive without the support by the others, right? So reasonable accommodation is nothing but providing support. And when we need support when the default is oblivious to individual needs. For example, the so-called default of the Indian legal scenario, which does not provide me anything in Braille. Courts are full of barriers, so my friends on wheelchairs cannot go to the court even as litigants or as judges or as witnesses. So basically, when all these barriers are there, the ideal is that the entire design should be accessible. The second issue is, even if you make the entire design accessible, you cannot address all disabilities because there are different disabilities. If you make a surface accessible for wheelchair prone, maybe you will not be able to make the same surface accessible for the people with visual disabilities. Therefore, you have to individualize the justice by taking into account, by addressing the needs of the individuals whom you need to interact or with whom you need to react or proact, maybe anticipating that they with certain visually impaired people will be there in your establishment. So reasonable accommodation is nothing but a smaller version of accessibility where instead of maybe going for wholesale transformation in design, you make adaptations in design to ensure that the individual who is part of your establishment is able to work efficiently. Now, the law says that this accommodation must be reasonable, i.e., it should not impose undue and disproportionate burden on the establishment. But I need to emphasize that disproportionate and undue burden will come later. First of all, it has to be ensured whether there is a dialogue, constructive dialogue between the reasonable accommodation provider and the person with disability. And after the dialogue, when there is some solution, there is some decision that, okay, this has to be done as by way of reasonable accommodation, then the question of whether the same adjustments are undue and disproportionate burden would arise. Again, when you want to calculate whether the cost of the adjustment is undue and disproportionate, you do not merely have to calculate the economic costs, but also the social costs. And most of the times, in my opinion, social costs would be far lesser than the economic costs, because if you just give primacy to the social economic costs, probably will overlook the social cost. And there is an extraordinary social cost in excluding a group or excluding an individual as part of the establishment.
Taking clue from there, that's a super point what Sanjay has made. You know what? I will now shift to based upon his answer. I will go to Pranav now. So Pranav, you know what? In India, a lot of establishments, there are a lot of restaurants or hotels or offices which are not built for, let's say, wheelchair, or built for people with listening disabilities or people with sight disabilities. In the US, a restaurant gets sued if it's not disabled friendly, right? There are a lot of, they also have some amount of passage for the disabled. They say it has to be this much wide, this much long, but that's not happening in India. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so first of all, I think for everybody to understand that, yes, US has been 50 years probably ahead of India in overall inclusion or accessibility or kind of provisions. We just celebrated on 26th of July, 32nd year of anniversary of Americans with Disability Act. So yes, there is a more wider acceptance and awareness for the rights So yes, there would be a lawsuit for non-compliance, but that goes back to the awareness of the people. If you have to look at in India, yes, we have started amazingly, with the legal provision and the requirements, but I still think that at large, people in India, including probably people with disability, are not that much active or asking for their rights or violation of the rights that fighting because of so many things. Again, it's not one, but people have figured out how to be non-compliant, how to, even if the building code requires you to do certain things, after you get a view permit, you change it. Those things are there. So to find solution for this type of situation, we have developed a mobile app wherein right now almost 20,000 public places are rated for accessibility. And that is what we believe, that we should include people and people should take charge. Like in America, if something is not accessible, there's a lawsuit. In India, everything is, the provisions are there. If the, as per the RPWD Act, even the extended timeline for accessibility, that is expired in June 2022. So if you have not got the extension for your building, you have to really complain. And that's where the mobile app that we have, that people can take a photograph of a particular location, and from the mobile app, they can enter the email address of the authority or the building owner and send in, the automatic email will go for the building owner or authority, whoever you want to send to. The beauty about it is it's not one person, it is crowdsourced activism. So if you want to change your community, yes, there is one way, by doing lawsuits. In India, if it is very expensive, if it is yet not ready or not enough lawyers available or affordability, we have put this for solution at least to the people, and certain cities are already, as I said, 20,000 places are mapped. So there is more awareness and participation. So I think India has to look at how they can create demand, because in a country like India or anywhere, if there is a demand, then there's a supply. So if there is a demand for, okay, I want this post office accessible, you have a solution to use this mobile app. 50 people complain to the same post office manager or to the authorities, I assure you that change will happen. So there is little
Pranav, the biggest issue is that in India, lawyers are not allowed to work on a contingency basis. And we at our firm get at least one lawsuit per month from a lawyer who has a disabled client. And as you know, sometimes these people on wheelchairs just visit restaurants just so they can figure out that this restaurant doesn't have a ADA ramp or ADA bathroom. At least once a month, we get these lawsuits, and the lawyer's working on a contingency basis. And my clients, we have to pay. So we pay 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 15,000. The lawyer gets 1/3. The client, the plaintiff, gets 2/3. But a lot of people complain that, hey, this is wrong. Some people are making a living off of this, and small business people are being hurt with all these lawsuits and are having to pay. Yeah, at a micro level, maybe the trees are always looking bad, but at a macro level, the forest is wonderful because every restaurant, every business person knows, and they fix it. And when they rent a place, they fix it. They make sure it's compliant. When somebody builds a building, they make sure it's compliant. So at the end of the day, these lawyers are actually, yeah, fine, they're making a little bit of money, but what a great service to humanity.
Absolutely. And that's where probably in India, like you rightly said, we don't have probably those type of
not allowed, illegal to do contingency matter. And to me, you might as well put a sign outside a country that doesn't allow contingency lawyering, and the sign says there's no justice for the poor in this country.
Yeah. And that's why at least alternative, we have empowered people with disability to start complaining, because at least some good thing is that if there is no cost for anybody to use this app and complain to the disability commissioner in their state, or disability chief commissioner of India, they will be heard. That's what at least, again.
Are you sure that they will be heard?
Yes, because the multiple complaining for the same. One person complaining for one building will never happen. But through technology, crowdsource, if 50 people, and we have seen that happening in bits and pieces, not like people are, that's what my little frustration is, that people are not using the power of technology. They will complain that this is not accessible, but then they are not probably going after making it accessible. So it's a contingency, as well as I think people awareness or asking for accessibility as aggressively as we see in America. Probably that could change.
So what is the app called, Pranav?
VOSAP. It is available on iOS and Android. Anybody can download. And you take charge of it. Complain to anybody, social media. There is a pressure that will work.
So guys, this app is called WhatsApp. If you can call it WhatsApp, please download the app and you will get all the information, your rights. If anything is not working for you, you want to complain against an injustice happening against you, go and make a complaint through the app called WhatsApp, VOSAP. Thank you so much, Pranav, for bringing this to our attention. Navneet, you want to ask the next round of questions? We have to go to Ananya.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Hello,
so
Ananya.
yeah.
Good morning, sir.
You're in 5th year law student?
Yes, sir. I'll be entering my 5th year at Jindal Law School.
But she's too smart for that, sir. So you can ask tough questions.
I see. Okay. So how did you, what's your interest with the specially abled?
So, sir, I mean, how the word disability covers quite a few of them. I would say when I saw my grandmother suffering with anxiety and depression firsthand, I think that kind of, triggered something in me, and probably seeing it firsthand made me realize that there's a lot more to it than we probably get to see. And I later realized, because it's very easy to gloss over, that so many of the symptoms I used to show myself in terms of high functioning anxiety. It's not a diagnosed medical disorder because you're able to do everything very properly, and rather many a times it even pushes you to do your best. But I think with my grandmother's journey that I sought help to, when I realized that how I for years thought that I was always this overachieving kid who's pushing myself to do my best, but somewhere deep down, the causal reason was a little different. So I think that probably, and then even in college, we have a disability and inclusion society, which is very, very proactive. So getting involved with them, working on projects with them, working with them as a peer tutor, as well as a researcher, I think that's how this became a cause that really resonated with me.
And you worked with Apoyo, is it?
Yes, sir. It's Apoyo. Yes, sir.
And what do they do?
So, sir, mostly it's a college, it's a student-run organization. So there's not a lot of work we're able to do in terms of external efforts, but we have a peer tutor and mentorship program. So all seniors, we fill out a form in the beginning of every academic semester, and whatever subjects we think we are confident in or we have scored well in, we help other students with it, whether it comes to assignments, whether it comes to guidance, or in general how to pave your way through law school. We're always there. So we are assigned duties that way. And then accordingly, we have weekly sessions or bi-weekly sessions, whatever frequency works for us. We move ahead with that. And then we have an Instagram page, a rather active Instagram page, where a lot of times we're hosting talks, we're hosting Insta lives, or, when it comes to just tiny threads of posts, whether it's during exam times or whether it's during, mid-sems or in general, posting a little regularly. I think little things like that. That's mostly what we're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Keep up this great work. We need a lot of people like you.
Thank you, sir.
You'll become Prime Minister of India one day or no?
I don't think I have the tenacity when it comes to wading my way through politics. It's a little too overwhelming. But when it comes to policy making and advocacy and developmental studies, that is something that does catch my interest. So probably through that route, assisting them, I would say.
Somebody once told me that one of the problems with India is that no good person wants to enter into politics. Is that true?
I think, yes, sir. It might be true. Very well. Yes.
So we're letting the non-good people run the country, and then we complain that this is not happening in the country?
I think, sir, if I might be honest enough, I think when it comes to, really making it in politics, there are so many other factors that come into the picture. So as much as you would like to, I think when it comes to having a certain history or familial connections or just a network that way, I won't quite know how to compete with that, if I'm being frank enough.
I will. Let me just bring back the topic to the topic. Thank you so much, Ananya. Thank you so much for that. Akshay, you're working in a government organization in India. The government organization is about 25 years old and helping the disabled to get employment in our country. You know what? A lot less people in our country who are our disabled heroes know about the organization. Why are you guys not doing enough marketing so that people know about what you're doing? Why are you not doing enough so that they know what you're doing and you can then help them?
Right. So Amit, firstly, we are an NGO. It's a non-government organization, although the name reflects as if it's a government organization, but we are an NGO. We are a non-profit organization. We have been in the sector for 26 years now. And NCPDP, along with its partners and networks across India, and its founder, late Shri Javed Abedi Saab, has played a key role in the passage of disability laws, the 1995 Act and then the 2016 Act. So, coming back to a question about marketing, Amit, disability is a very crucial topic, and a lot of people don't like to talk about it, and the whole stigma around it, the unawareness around the topic, and the way we are dealing with the topics, the way we are referring to people with disabilities, and so all this comprises to the problem. Now we have been there, and I would just like to give you a brief example. Post-COVID, we have been running this national helpline for persons with disabilities where they can call us and register their grievances. And we have been receiving approximately 10 to 15 calls every day, and these calls are relating. We have been denied employment, we have denied admission in any national institution, or there is a family matter and stuff like that. So the issue is, first of all, it's the stigma, and then the problem at the bureaucracy level, or the level where all the stakeholders need to come together. So even if we're doing a lot of work, it's not coming out because of that, because people are not aware itself. They do not know. And I'm not just complaining about the government or the bureaucracies. It's the responsibility of an individual as well, that they need to know their rights. So moving from social welfare to the rights-based approach, once we have that, our work will be reflected.
Great. Awesome. Devika, coming to, since we're talking about employment of the disabled, in the US, there is a law called Americans with Disability Act, ADA, right? In which you cannot differentiate or discriminate if somebody has some disability. It's illegal to discriminate against them. Is it really being implemented? What rights they have, and what can the disabled do if they're being discriminated in the US?
That's a great question. And first, I would just like to apologize for being late. We lost our power because there's a massive storm that, of course, came at the right time. So thanks. I really apologize.
I'm so glad US also has power cuts.
I had a feeling relieved. That was going to be the response, like, oh, you also have that? So thanks for your understanding, and I apologize. So that's a really great question you asked about the Americans with Disabilities Act. Just a great point today. On Tuesday, which was the 26th, we actually celebrated the 32nd anniversary of the ADA. It was signed 32 years ago. So it was and I will preface it with that the ADA was a landmark civil rights decision that happened in the United States. It was fought for many years As you can imagine, any law takes many, many years, many, many advocates. So what I will say is that while it did make it illegal in many ways, I will say that it just set as you all are attorneys or bounding attorneys, it set a precedent, right? So it set an idea of where the baseline is and what it has been able to do. And at that time, the Americans with Disabilities Act was really about physical structures. It was really at that time to say, like, you should have curb cuts so people who use wheelchairs or who use crutches or maybe partially mobile and things like that can get on a sidewalk or get on the road without having a jump off to the side to the road. Buildings should have ramps. Buildings should have ramps so people using wheelchairs. And again, anything that I have personally seen that has been effective of the ADA, it benefits a lot of people, right? How many times that if you've gotten hurt, you broke your leg playing outside, those ramps were probably going to be helpful because you were not going to be able to climb stairs. So when it was first passed and became law, it was really about physical spaces. It was really about buildings, making sure that they had wide doorways, making sure bathrooms had enough space for wheelchairs to be able to go in. So at that time, it was physical structure. There's still a lot of work to do. My firm does that work. To kind of touch on Akshay's point of marketing and your question, Amit, like we are behind the marketing of why it's important to talk about this, right? And destigmatize, if you will. But so the Americans with I don't know if you can hear the rumbling behind me, but the Americans with Disabilities Act has had, again, a set of precedent. And since then, there have been a lot of laws that have been coming either in play, have been passed by the Supreme Court, or they're also changing the structure of technology now. So a lot of people are starting to interpret the ADA with tech and assistive technology about access and barriers. So while it hasn't, and I will tell you, I'm speaking from listening to all the disability advocates I work with agency leaders, there's still so much work to be done. A lot of it is around employment. A lot of it is around housing, and transportation is one of our biggest ones. So the ADA, like I said, really just set a rule, a precedent, and now everything beyond it is kind of using that as a argument, if you will, on access to really living in the community just like anyone else. So I hope that answered that question.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Devika, for that context. Navneet, you want to ask the next round of questions?
Akshay, I wanted to ask you, so if you Google how many specially abled people there are in the world, the answer is 15%. If you ask Google how many specially abled in the US, the answer is 14%. And when you ask about India, it says 2%, which tells me that the Indian numbers are absolutely inaccurate. I can see a 5, 10%, 15% deviation, but it's 80% off, which means the government is not collecting data, right?
Sir, first of all, thank you for asking that question. I've been really meaning to talk about this issue in India. So you're right. Globally, about 15% of the population is with some form of disability. So that accounts for 1 billion people. And it is true that India has one of the highest population of people with disabilities. And definitely the number that government quotes, 2.21%, is totally, if I can say, is rubbish. And according to global estimates, it should be around 8 to 10%. However, I personally feel it's going to be more than 15%. The reason for why we do not have an accurate data, there are multiple reasons. Firstly, the last census that India, from where we are referring to this data, happened in 2011. And in 2011, the law in place was the 1995 Act, which had only seven disabilities. And the RPWD Act came into existence in 2016, and wherein the number of disability was raised from 7 to 21. So first of all, the first issue is not all disabilities are captured while we are collecting data. Secondly, it's as I've mentioned again and again, it's the stigma, because people with disabilities are not coming forward when we are trying to collect data. And thirdly, sir, it's the training or the sensitization of enumerators who go and collect data. India is supposed to conduct its next census in 2021, which got delayed because of COVID, and now the upcoming census 16 is going to be conducted in a digital format, and yet we do not have a proper mechanism of what all will be followed. How is it going to be done? Is it going to be some application which we will be asked to download and then self enumerate ourselves, or a person is going to come to our house and then ask questions and then we are going to do it? So that is the challenge. If it's digital, then the accessibility is a bigger issue, and again we feel not an exact number won't be calculated. Fourthly, sir, I think it's the political will, and it's our own awareness that we're not because of which we're neglecting people with disabilities. In 2018, national sample survey was conducted on disability, and it again referred to the same data as quoted by census 2011. So because of this, we do not have right funds allocated for the disability sector, or for people with disabilities. We do not have right kind of policies in place, because we do not have an accurate number of how many people with disabilities are there in a disaggregated format. We do not know how many people with disabilities are unemployed, how many are below 18 years and need education. So we do not have all of that data, and that's the problem. So to answer your question, we do not have a number because we're not referring to the right data, and we're not following the proper mechanisms. Like there is a Washington group of questions that is being followed, I guess, in US and in most parts of the world now. And we have been advocating to use that format as well. But as of now, as per my knowledge, that format is not being totally acquired by the Indian policymakers.
One thing I want to say here, see, I was reading the chat also, and one of the chats in this window on Zoom, one person is saying, you guys are organizing a session on disability and you have no sign language interpreter who can sit beside us and can basically interpret work for sign language, because the person is deaf, the person can't hear us. So he is currently attending our session. I'm really sorry. So this is exactly what our negligence is as well. We should have appointed a sign language interpreter for people with disability. And my greatest apologies to you. Very, very sorry. Can't be. So this is a miss. It's a miss from us, from the organizers, and very, very sorry. So you know what, Pranav? Firsthand, so great points, Akshay. First of all, great point. People with disability have stigma. They don't want to come in open. There were a lot of laws. A lot of disabilities were not even covered in the laws. Pranav, what do we do? This number is dismissal. Definitely 2.2% is not the right number. In India, I believe there are a lot of polio cases. Only recently polio has been eradicated, perhaps, maybe. I'm sure this number is more than 20% in India. How do we convince our people in India कि बाहर निकलो, अपने rights को पकड़ो और खींचो, अपने जेब में डालो? How do we convince them that get out? It's not a stigma. Go out and get your goddamn rights. How have you done it? How have you done it? What is your story?
Yeah, my story, as I said, fortunately that I could come to US in 99. Till that time, frankly, I would admit, even I did not fight for accessibility. I could find the ways because there were requirements, and I could manage to get accessibility in the college, in the MBA program, and wherever I could manage. But I accepted that life of living with hardship. Only after coming to US, oh, this is what the world could be. So that opened up. So yes, now with that passion, we have, as I told about, not only mobile app, many other things. So we have now 11,000 registered volunteers who have taken place to volunteer for advocating for the rights of disabled people. It's very important that we create a mass movement of people, like-minded people, like I just posted in the chat also, that very happy to see ILA community, Navneet ji and Amit, you and all of you have mobilize so many people, we need to have much bigger perspective of how this will help economic expansion. The whole premise is that yes, rights are important, but when you are asking for rights, the other party should also be able to see their benefit. So our advocacy is on a sustainable mutual benefit. If you are an employer, yes, equal employment, all of that is absolutely important. But in America also, you'll be surprised with frustration that after 32 years also, that's why I wrote a blog, ADA 2.0 is needed. 2 out of 3 college graduates are not employed if they are disabled. And only 6.4 million college graduates in America out of 40 million. So that is a very small population of college graduates. Out of that, also only 2.2 million are employed as of 2018. So a point I'm making is that the rights, the other party also should be able to see what is their benefit. So we all have to promote that narrative on ability-centric advocacy, where people start seeing the benefits of, if I hire a person with disability, lower attrition, higher productivity, better work culture, so many parameters are there. So that's how we give them opportunity. When you are talking about the accessibility rights, if you are a restaurant owner, you are opening doors to the old age people and many other more customers. So I think a mass movement in country like India is needed. Till the time we have like contingency and other things, rules change, people will have to really come together and that's why we are promoting. We have youth volunteers, youth advocates, like out of 11,000, more than 5,000 are youth. So they have to be the leaders of tomorrow, and they have to really fight for that at every stage. For the rights of disabled people. Not see, many times people with disability will try to speak, but they will be ignored. They will be perceived as an activist. But when person without disability, I mean, if you start talking about their rights,
is there anything to
there's
support?
a lot more impact and acceptance that yes, there needs to be done something. So that's what I think we are doing.
Absolutely, that is the objective of ILA, and we will definitely, that's why we're working for it. Ananya, you know what? This question is for you and for Dr. Sanjay. But why for both of you? And you can answer first, Ananya. Dr. Sanjay is a super professor in the best law university in the country, National Law School, Bangalore. The best. There's nobody beyond National Law School, Bangalore. Okay. He is teaching young kids, youth like yourself. What's the youth perspective when, let's say, a disabled person is teaching you? What is, do you pity them? What do you, so in general, I'm not talking about your opinion, I'm talking about in general, what's the perspective of youth for disabled in general?
I think for starters, so that's a brilliant question. But what my take would be on that is that, in fact, in my 5th semester, that's the beginning of my 3rd year, for Constitutional Law 2, I had a professor with a visual impairment. And till date, that's been one of the most intellectually stimulating and one of the hardest classes I've had.
Super.
On paper, you think that, Constitutional Law 2, and it was an online semester, COVID was still going on. The year was 2020, so the pandemic was at its peak. You would think that on paper, it's a theoretical paper, it would be easy to pass, it would be easy to get flying colors, but no. The level, the academic rigor that I came across in the course, not only in terms of how the papers were said, but in terms of the effort Sir used to put into teaching as well. I think that was absolutely brilliant. And I mean, of course, because many a times there are network issues. So even other professors, they used to not turn their videos on and you only had the audio incoming. So we never really felt any difference in that respect. And I think, yes, at times I remember I used to be talking to my classmate while working on research assignments that Sir must have studied the same subjects in class. And even now, when he has to, mark our research papers, mark our assignments, we have a hard time typing it all down, researching. imagine listening, you have that audio option that you can enable on your laptop and that dictation setting as well. Imagine the level of effort that must be going in that regard. So I was always in awe of him, and my respect for him had always just been there from the very starting. We didn't know that this was the case. So in the first, I think in the first lecture, we got to know when we're just, breaking the ice. And that way, one thing which I love about this generation is that snide remarks, taunts, or just mockery at the cost of the other person. That is something that I never saw in my class while we were in an online semester, or even while we were on campus for the first 2 years of my degree. I think I have to give it to Jindal, the kind of atmosphere we have, whether it comes to making it, accessible for people with disabilities, or people being very vocal about their rights, whether it's mental health issues, another kind of disability, whether it comes to physical disabilities, and making sure that those kind of accessibilities are there and are provided for. I think people are very prompt to take action in that regard too. So I think that creates a very holistic and a very inclusive atmosphere, which is very important. And the best thing, as I think Desai sir mentioned, that if people who are not suffering from disabilities, if they also feel as strongly as about it, if they also are as vocal about it, that makes for a stronger impact. Because a lot of times people are afraid of getting labeled or getting that tag of an activist. So I think that creates, a domino effect, which leads to amazing things. And the other thing that I believe in our generation has reduced, but of course still exists because it's a long journey to go, is stigma. So in India, we all in all live in a collectivist society. And the community we live in, sadly, does have the power to shape our ideology and our identity to a large extent. We share common goals, but at the same time, we always have at the back of our head that we have to converge to a common standard. So until unless that at the grassroots level is not really worked out upon, and that's an individual thing we need to do, I think it's a little hard, because stigma is something that is a rampant issue, whether it comes to mental health issue concerns, whether it comes to intellectual disability, whether it comes to physical disabilities, because you can see a causal, chain therein. That on one hand, people are not ready to speak up because they are afraid as to how they will be perceived. So if that fear of perception goes away, or it at least diminishes, because you see more people doing that discomfort or that unease or that hesitation that people face, that will reduce. And that will lead to more people actually standing up and, being vocal about, okay, this is our needs and this is how we're going to go about claiming it. So I think the causal chain needs to be identified and accordingly be worked on.
Correct. One common message which I think Pranav and you are saying is that people with no agenda. That's, what he is saying, that if disabled people start a movement, the movement might freeze out because people have some agenda. But people like you and me, Navneet, if we start the movement and be part of the movement for the disabled, we have no personal agenda. But the agenda is to get the rights that people deserve. Navneet, over to you.
Dr. Jain, I wanted to ask you, I don't know the answer at all. So in US, for instance, the specially abled people get a lot of benefits from every employer in the 50 states has to contribute, let's say, about 1% of every single employee's salary to a disability fund. And then when somebody gets disabled, which includes pregnancy, by the way, then those funds are used to pay people. And then the federal Social Security as well provides benefits. And then the Veterans Administration, which takes care of the 20 million people who've served in the US Armed Forces, has a disability benefit. So I was wondering, does any of the state, local, federal government in India provide any benefits for the specially abled?
I don't know. I mean, frankly, I don't agree with this whole business of benefits. And this is very, very paternalistic, and I disagree with a lot of things said on this panel. I disagree with India bashing. I disagree with extraordinary glorification of ADA. I appreciate Devika's intervention when she rightly pointed out the backlash of US Supreme Court on ADA and how therefore ADA was required to be amended. And this whole assumption that everything is hunky-dory in US about disabled, I think is the greatest myth, which has to be quickly busted. Having said so, why benefits? Why do we need benefits? I think in India, unlike US, where there is enormous amount of social security allowances and so on and so forth, people with disabilities have been able to work very hard on their own with the help of their families, with the help of civil society. And I think for far too long, they have spoken about US activism. If you, for example, read the Harvard magazine Practice, which has a dedicated issue on disability cause lawyering, you would realize, and I have also written a piece there, you would realize that India's cause lawyering has been far better than in US. For example, we have argued cases on the front of employment, whereas in US, mostly the cases are argued, as was pointed out by Pranav, on the plank of civil rights, accessibility, etc. But I think more than civil rights, in India, the need is employment, because till people get employment, how they will survive. So I think there are enormous cultural differences between India and US, and therefore this unnecessary comparison between India and US, and trying to pose a picture that everything is great in US and everything is very, very disappointing in India is not what should be happening. My second point is this whole idea that disabled are always at the receiving end. You will teach and we will learn. This idea is not correct. Sometimes we can teach and you can learn, right? Third point, why address disabled as heroes? And why say that disabled people have special abilities? I mean, we should set the conventions right. This is not the language we expect to be used. We are not heroes. We are just like normal as you. And it's not you versus us. It's us. We all are a community of people with dignity, right? UNCRPD, United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability, revolves around only one important principle: inherent dignity for every human being, irrespective of difference. So disability is merely a difference. And by the way, I must also tell you that USA has not yet ratified or signed UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability. India has done it quite earlier. So I think we are trying our best. In India, on statistics, of course, I agree. We are not trained properly. Our census people are not trained properly. NSSO figure, if you see, they say that in last 3 years, 1% disability has, from 3%, now we are 2%. Yeah, I agree. But I think these things happen everywhere. What is important, I think, is to provide visibility to the disabled and to admit this idea, to realize this fact that everybody can become disabled. All of us are only temporarily able-bodied. I always use the word tab to describe the so-called normal. So this whole business of normal versus the specially able has to be abandoned. Nobody is specially able, everybody is able. Okay, some abilities are visible, some abilities are not. Right?
So Dr. Jain,
I would apologize if I have said anything which would
not
hurt
at all.
anybody, but I like to put my points very forthright.
No, very nice, very nice. No apology required. If anything, we should be apologizing. When we started Indian Lawyers Association in India in January of 2018, and we started doing these webinars, and I've spoken a few times, I'm very conscious of the fact that I try not to even mention that I could be in Los Angeles or USA, and I don't ever want it to be like, here come people from America and they want to talk about things not being right in India. The only thing we wanted to do is have a discussion and bring up the topic. And like I said, I don't know what the benefits are in India. And I'm so happy that you have a positive outlook. And I'm so happy that people are getting the right help. But can I ask you, what is the appropriate nomenclature according to you?
Well, I think there are two nomenclatures. There are two approaches in disability studies. Identity first approach, where you will first focus the disability. So blind person or the person first approach, where you would say person with disabilities. So there are these two moments, but if you ask me personally, this is all semantics. It's everybody's choice. I would like to be addressed as blind person because I am blind and my blindness is going to be forever. And there is no shame in recognizing it, right? There is not even any stigma. I mean, everybody used to wear specs after he or she becomes older. So what is the big deal? So, but yes, there are these two moments, person first or identity first. I think to my mind, humanity must be first. Right?
Why is it, Dr. Jain, that people you think all over the world have a stigma and they don't feel comfortable sharing it?
Well, I tell you this idea that okay, I am better off and you are not, right? That is one aspect. For example, US Supreme Court has found it extremely difficult to recognize reasonable accommodation. Most of the judgments, if you read on reasonable accommodation in US, they are markedly different from the feminist intervention. I mean, how court has empowered women or court has empowered the Black people. So the stigma is, even some of the most learned philosophers would take this position that, okay, no. When it comes to disability, there are natural differences between able-bodied and disabled. So this is something which is ingrained in us. We don't want to recognize this fact that, okay, disability is something which can haunt all of us anytime, anywhere, any day. And somehow we want to maintain the distance between us and the disabled. That is one of the main reasons of stigmatization. And secondly, this very idea that, the world is not fit for the disabled. So you have wrongful birth cases, you have wrongful life cases, children. There are weird cases in US where, children bringing cases against their parents. Why you have brought us in this world as disabled, as if being disabled is something which is not worth living. So this whole business, because somehow you are made to believe that okay, you are inferior, and that's what we need to challenge. I mean, while realizing that everybody is not disabled, you have to also accept that everybody is disabled some way or the other. Right? Everybody is not disabled in the sense that some disabilities are visible disabilities, and suppose I am blind and you are not blind, that way everybody is not disabled. But suppose not knowing English or having inability to grasp complicated philosophy, for example, I may be and you may be equally disabled in doing so. So I mean, it's a very complex issue, and therefore I think the best thing to do is to be good human being, right? To be tolerant, to be receptive, to be accommodative, and to be appreciative, and to be receptive, right? And quickly we should abandon paternalism. Quickly we should stop believing that okay, we can give and they can take. Sometimes they can give, you can take, right? So this whole business of hierarchy, this whole business of looking things in an ableist manner, right? As if everything is good for the able-bodied. So this very beautiful book by Fiona Campbell, Contours of Ableism, where she tells, even we were talking about disabled not coming out of their homes because they have internalized ableism. They have, just like women internalized patriarchy. People with disabilities have internalized ableism. So we need to help them to come out of this internalization. And this internalization is there because they are not exposed. But things are improving, right? For example, how many consultations you had after government rolled out the national draft policy on disability, compelling government to apologize, compelling government to publish the accessible version of the policy, and compelling government to extend the time by 1 more month so that many voices are heard and government is properly appraised. So I think now it's not like earlier when government will talk and we will listen. Now we will talk and government will have to listen, right? Nothing without us, about us, right?
Thank you, Dr. Jain. Thank you very much. Amit?
Indeed a great perspective. So I know a lot of people, disabled, blind. I don't know what word to use now. I call them hero because of a personal reason that one of my very close friends, his name is Sanjay Jain. He did an event for the paraplegic in the military. So in the event, he distributed a gold ring to all the 88 paraplegic people in the army who were in the Kargil war or because of the Air Force or Navy. He did a fantastic job. A couple of weeks back, I witnessed the charity event which he did. And in the facility in Pune, facility is one of the biggest facility in India, where army people who got injured or disabled because of their service in the army or because of XYZ reason, army is taking care of them. And there are people, 80 out of the 88 people, army people in Pune, in the paraplegic center, there were some of them who won gold medal in Olympics. And that's why I'm calling them heroes, because they were in the center, and I just witnessed them out 2 weeks back. So great perspective. Lot less people, Dr. Sanjay, have that perspective where they are so mentally strong that they do not need any help. And we also call them differently.
No. Everybody needs help. I mean, I'm not at all saying that nobody needs help, but we are not heroes. That's what I'm saying.
So
Olympian is of course a hero. Olympian
yes.
is a hero because he has won gold medal. Right? I have not won gold medal. Right?
For example, Ananya mentioned that her teacher who was blind put more effort, more energy in the class.
Every teacher has to. This is where we commit mistake. Don't kill us with kindness. Or don't kill us with sympathy, which is kind of a masked empathy probably, but it sounds like sympathy. Every teacher has to put effort. Why only blind people would put effort, right? This is not done. I know she's not saying it. She doesn't mean like that. This is a normal feeling. But then my teacher used to say that when this time will come, when people will appreciate that blind people can also take the same effort like any other teacher. Why my effort is special? Just because I'm blind and I'm teaching constitutional law, therefore my class is special? No.
Sure. Coming to you, Devika, there's a lot of CSR that can go to these organizations. Organization that is run by Akshay and his team and Pranav's team. A lot of CSR money can go and help our folks out here with disability. Why is it not happening properly? What can we do about it?
That's a great question. So for just for everyone on the panel, CSR is corporate social responsibility. So for why it's not happening, I wish there was one simple answer that could just blanket and solve all the questions here. A couple of things. I'm going to go back to marketing a little bit, and I really love that you referenced people first language, Dr. Jain. I thought that was great. We work a lot with that. But just going back to the marketing efforts, it's very important for marketing because you have to let people know you're there. You have to let people know that message is very clear. And I would agree with that it's not about sympathy, it's about ability, right? It's about the idea that it's about positioning. So why it's not going there, chances are they don't know. Chances are these corporations don't understand the economic values of what can happen when you empower individuals. And it's not just about individuals with disabilities, it's about any kind of societal group, so you hear about it everywhere else. So I would say, while there's corporate social dollars, whether it's advocacy, whether it's proper messaging, all of that goes around making sure that people are aware you're there and what you do. India is a huge country. You're about 1 billion people. So it's kind of how do you stand out? How do you make sure people hear you? There's so many people clamoring for attention, especially for the bigger corporate dollars, correct? So what are you doing to make sure that they're getting that information? So marketing has a purpose. Marketing and communications has a very important purpose. And I'm not saying that from a biased perspective. I'm saying that and how do you all know the information you do is because you're communicating it right now. How is this work going to move forward is because you're communicating it right now. So if CSR dollars are at play, or even just advocacy is at play, you have to let people know you are there, and you have to make sure that, I'm trying to speak lawyer language, you have to make the case, and you have to make the case of why something is important and why someone should care. Not everyone is going to care about everything, right? There's so many causes. And I think that's something we also have to be very clear about, that what might be important to you may not be important to someone else. But sometimes it's just about shifting perspective. It's, I will just give it a quick example. My cousin lives in Dehradun, and he's a person who uses a wheelchair. So this is actually very personal for me. My firm has been doing disability marketing communications for almost 15 years. So professionally, it's very important to me. So this is all about awareness. And I will tell you that when I see Nolan in his space, when I go to visit my family, he's actually, he's doing great. And it's not about sympathy. He's a doctor. He has a wonderful house, wonderful life. He goes to the restaurants, things like that. So that is what we're actually moving forward. That's actually what we're trying to say, is that they could, people with disabilities can go to restaurants, be professors, be doctors, lawyers, just like everyone else. And you only make that case when you talk about it. And it's not about, so when you're talking about CSR and corporate social responsibility, it's really down to the brass tacks of good communications and really making sure people understand the why of they should care. And, just like Akshay is talking about employment, that's exactly why we should be talking about the importance of employing people with disabilities in meaningful jobs, just like all of us have, and contribute to society and economically. That's a very big conversation about that can go on for hours and days if we want, but I would say that's why they perhaps don't know about it. And there's a lot of education that can be done around it.
Absolutely. So, there are great points. So, Akshay and Pranav, both your organizations are doing great work for disableds. Both. Problem kya hai? And Devika's company, Devika has been advocating and marketing for disability from last 15 years. Abhi, Pranav, your let's say your app, WhatsApp, has about 20,000 downloads. Akshay's company is about 26-year-old company or NGO working for disabled, their employment. Do you guys have a fundraising department? A lot of money sitting out there. Corporates have to give the money to you guys because you are doing a great job. NGO, you qualify for the CSR money. Do you guys even have a fundraising department to raise money so you can use the money for the right purpose? Give it to people like Devika's company where they can do and advocate about your business and do a lot more for disabled than you're currently doing. Do you have a fundraiser department? And if no, why you guys have no fundraiser department?
Yeah, so we do fundraising obviously as a non-profit periodically in the year, and but not in a professional fundraising manner or to that extent. Devika's point is absolutely right. So in fact, we did a research, Devika, with universities. So we are having research program, and 20 plus US universities students have participated, more than 100 so far. So we did a deep search study on CSR, particularly CSR initiatives in disability sector. So our intent is a little bit going that way, that we have now list of 36 US companies on the top 100 who have programs in disability sector. So now we are going there as the next steps, because we know directly that these companies are doing this much in disability sector. So yes, we have a plan to get there for bigger dollar. But so far we have not been. We are a little bit slow, probably. We are 5 years in the existence. Yeah.
Yes, Akshay, do you guys have a fundraise department? Fundraise department, like with the team members and managers and stuff like that.
So Amit, as Mr. Desai said, there is no professional fundraising that's there, but yes, we do have fundraising, and we do fundraising periodically. But I think there is one more challenge that we need to understand, which comes with CSR policies that are mandated by the government, and we also need to understand that CSR funds usually are directed more inclined towards, where there is a service delivery. When you're working in a law, policy and advocacy domain, then it's a bit of a difficult for you to raise funds, because you do not have exact numbers or accurate numbers to show as to how many people you have benefited to. Because when you're working in a law policy domain, you are impacting a large number of people, because your work is resulting into a better policy, and that's your outcome, that's your result. So that's why it's a bit difficult. But yes, to sustain ourselves, we do fundraising and we do raise funds as and when needed.
Okay. Navneet, do you want to conclude it or ask a few more questions before we conclude?
We should ask everybody who's been patiently listening to post their questions on the chat so we can ask our panelists questions.
There are a lot of questions here.
Okay. I have a question for Akshay. Akshay, if you're made the Disability Commissioner of India, what 3 things would you add, change, delete, or do?
So that's still a dream, but yes, I do have certain things that I want, that I want any disability commissioner for any state to implement. So first of all, sir, the biggest thing that we need to do is all the stakeholders need to come together, be it a government organization, be it a private employer, be it an individual, or be it people like us, the lawyers, the activists, the individuals who are aware about themselves. And, I really appreciate with what Dr. Jain said, and I completely agree with him. And we need to develop this thinking for everyone. So that's one thing. Second thing, sir, I think, I would like to go back to the theme of this, the whole discussion, disability laws and how we need to fix them. So I think enforcing a law and, implementing a law is not just a job of one stakeholder or, just the government or just the bureaucracy. It's all of us. All of us lawyers need to understand what disability rights are, and all of us lawyers needs to use it as a tool to get access to justice for people with disabilities. Someone was talking about offenses and punishments mentioned under the RPWD Act, and there is a section 92 which talks about punishments. And the range of the punishments is fine from rupees 500 to 5 lakh and imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years. And that covers all of your offenses, be it a discrimination, be it a denial in employment, or, be it not providing education, or even if you're outraging a modesty of a person with women with disability, then where do you go? You will go through RPWD Act, and that's what the punishment is, which is not in synchronization with other laws like IPC or CRPC. So it is important for us to develop a law, to enforce a law, and to make sure that that particular law has been put in synchronization with all the other laws. So that's, I think, these are the 2 things that I would do. And I think the third thing that we all need to do is word to word or mouth to mouth awareness. If I'm talking to you, I'm telling you about disability, you are telling me about something, and these discussions need to happen, and not just within people with disabilities, but out everywhere. And, I think one more thing that I would like to do is I would like to make sure that disability is added as a part of academics in each and every course. If you're teaching law, then disability should be a subject just like human rights or just like disaster management, because that's where a disability is a very important component. If you're talking about working professionals, then I think they should be made aware or sensitized about reasonable accommodation or equal opportunity policies at their workplaces. So things like these need to be done if you want to move ahead.
Thank you, Akshay. I was very glad to hear that you have deep down an interest in becoming the commissioner. That would be great.
Thank you, sir.
What can we do to help you get there?
Sir, I think legal fraternity, be it US or be it India, I think has the biggest responsibility on their shoulders to, sir, I myself am a 2020 batch pass out, and, all my friends and all my colleagues have been willing to go to, get a corporate job or get into a law firm or get a high paying job, but none of them was willing to shift to an NGO sector or, to a sector where a social impact could be made. So, this initiative by ILA, this discussion by ILA, I think it's a very good start, and we need to continue, we need to amplify it. We need to amplify our reach within all the diversified groups, and we need to get everywhere, and we need to tell, just not just about disability, but about any other thing that we're facing today as a challenge. We need to talk about that. We need to just give a sensitization. We need just to talk about it, how to use the RPWD Act is 5 years old legislation, and still the governments are referring to the 1995 Act. And this is our failure. And even though we have moved a way forward, we have come a way long, and we have got certain things that we have been willing to get, yet there's a long route to cover. And I think these discussions are something that we all should take forward, and kudos to ILA for having one such discussion, and I think we should have more of these.
So all your friends are making 3-4 times as much money as you were making. So are you going to get hired soon and join them?
No, I have been working in disability since my graduation, that is since 2018. And I think I would like to continue as long as I'm alive.
Very good. Super. So Akshay, what's your calling? Why are you doing it? For example, let's say everybody here has a calling, a passion for disability. So I heard Ananya, her grandmother, and other members here on the panel have some reason to be associated with this topic.
So,
what's your reason?
If the time permits, just a very small thing that I want to mention. I was in some remote areas of Rajasthan in 2018, and I just wanted to get this calling. Why I want to do this? I just want to understand that myself, and I did a very small survey kind of thing for myself to understand how things are, because I've been reading about the laws, and I know that the RPWD Act is really good on paper, but then I wanted to understand what is the problem. What's the problem with people or with the individuals. And hence that survey that I did, I just met 25 people from very, very remote areas of Rajasthan, around Jaipur and Jodhpur. And I just spoke to each of them, like, for 5, I was there for 5-6 days, and I just understood the problems, so it started from there. And, now we have these helplines. Now we see people have issues, and now we see there is a lot to be done. And I think it started from there. And yes, so I felt there is a need that we need to be in this domain. And, people like Ananya and her friends and her colleagues, I think this is how we need to start. We need to talk about it. We need to understand it, and we need to feel responsible to certain extent about it. I'm not saying that just do this, don't earn money. It's your personal choice. You got to make what you want. But we are in a profession, we are in a line where I think it's important for us that we are responsible for it as well. And I think that's it. It could be anything, it could be anything, but we need to make sure that we are giving something back to the society. And last thing, I just conclude with that. I think what we are demanding as a disability sector is equality and nothing else, no more, no less. I don't want any one of you or, myself to refer to a person with disability with some kind of special respect or, anything. No, that a person could be a good or a bad person. It totally depends on the nature, but it's just that refer to disability as a disability. That's it. Address it as what it is. That's it.
So Akshay, one last question. Is there a disability organization for people of India with like 1 million members or something?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't get your question.
Is there an Indian association for people with disability with like 1 million members or something?
No, I don't think. There are few networks and through which all these disability organizations or organizations of people with disabilities working on grassroots are connected. And many of those people I can see have joined us on this webinar. So it's called National Disability Network or National Committee on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So there are such groups which are connected again, which have branches in remote areas. But on a national level, there are a few networks that are there. But yes, so they connect. So it's like a branch mode.
I think National Platform for Rights of Disabled. Right?
Yes, NPRD as well. Yes.
NPRD is a very grassroots and
Yes.
very densely represented platform.
Yes.
Yeah, and on, can I just make a small intervention on, I mean, why do we need a reason to engage with disability? Right? Reason may be ourselves. What happened if I myself become disabled? So why do I need to see externally? Why do I need to look at my grandmother? Right? So just a change in perspective, right? Just instead of being reactive, let's be proactive, right? Once we become proactive, this disabled business will be over. Right?
We'll do this webinar again, and we'd love to have you again, Dr. Jain and Akshay and others. This national organization you're talking about, we'd love to have a member from that organization and continue this dialogue. There's just too much at stake here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Yes, thank you so much. We'll do it again. There's a lot of questions which we'll answer next time. We'll continue the session. Thank you so much.
I
again.
think next time, please involve your audience also, because they may be having questions. So
yes, we'll do it for 2 hours. Yes, we'll involve.
Even if you can do it 1 hour, maybe you can keep 15 minutes for them. Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam.
Please.
Thank you, everyone.